it was a pleasure, but it was an evolving passion at the same time. You were aware at the time that that's something you wanted to do?
No, I didn't have the breadth of spirit to think that I could do that. What I did was intuitively go to acting and satisfy, I guess, the yearnings there. I also, when I was in high school, used to go, some friends and I every Friday afternoon would cut classes and head downtown Montreal where they had a burlesque house. And Lili St Cyr was usually there stripping, and they had the comics. And I used to cry with laughter at the burlesque comedians. That was in the last vestiges of that kind of theater, the Gaiety Theater in Montreal. And it doesn't exist anymore. But that kind of burlesque, which was prominent in the States, and when I got down to New York, finally, and when I was in my middle and late teens, those comics and those strippers were at work in Times Square and in the theaters that abounded New York.
When you were 6 years old, I understand you played the role of a Jewish boy in Nazi Germany and discovered the power that an actor could have over an audience. Could you describe that experience?
I was in camp, and I didn't have any idea of the nature of everything that was happening. I don't even remember the words, but it was a child leaving home and leaving his dog, played by another camper. And I said goodbye to the dog. And I've forgotten what else the drama consisted of, but I was playing in front of the parents of the campers who came up from Montreal to, 30, 40 miles into the countryside. And those parents were either Holocaust survivors or children of. And so I must have touched a well. And I remember taking a bow as the six-year-old, maybe, 6, and bowing and seeing them wiping their tears. And that gave me, I thought, wow, that's something. I remember the feeling.
Feeling of empowerment?
Yeah, empowerment, but more wonderment. More wonderment.
When you were 8, you made your professional acting debut as Tom Sawyer.
Huh.
Describe, do you recall that? Montreal Children's Theater. Let's talk about your years there.
Well,
briefly.
then I started, my mother enrolled me in a acting school. And essentially what the acting school was doing plays for which the acting school charged admission, I guess, and put on plays for their students. But I don't remember being taught, because I don't believe you can be taught how to act. But you can learn the discipline of learning words and having to appear and having to say them. I don't ever recall thinking I'm too scared to do this, and I won't. Therefore, I won't do it. I'm just a child. I had an occasion not so long ago to direct some kids, and we got to opening night, and one of the kids says, "I don't want to go on." I said, "Well, you got to go on." Thinking I'll just will them through it. And they said, "No, I'm not going on." And I had to, on that opening night, rush around and adjust and give other kids lines and make it up on opening night. There was no way I could get a child who had decided, for one reason or another, too scared, too sick, to decide to change his mind. The child had decided to change his mind. And I couldn't work the adults' wiles of the show must go on. They didn't care about the show. They were involved with their fear or whatever it was.
And you never had that?
And I never had that. To me, the show had to go on. I understood the concept from a very early age.
At the same time, you were doing radio work for CBC.
At the same time, this was now a few years later, when I was in my teens, I began to work for the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, and Rupert Kaplan was his name, was the producer for English radio, because there was a lot of French radio going on, French drama. And he put on dramas that fed the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation network, so that Canada, in its attempt to spread the dollars out for the acting, for the talents, the writing, directing, and producing and acting talents, spread the drama out between Vancouver, would put on some radio dramas, Winnipeg, I think, Toronto, of course, which was the center, Toronto being the New York, really, of Canada in those years, and still is, and Montreal, and even Halifax. So they would spread the drama, they would spread the dollars, and so the local actors could make a few bucks.
And you benefited from that?
Well, I entered the stream. Instead of my journey going up one gully, I started to...
You were still a very young man at this point. You hadn't even entered high school.
Right.
What was that like, to be such a noted figure?
Well, I wasn't noted.
Well, noted to some degree.
No, I was a very minor figure in a group, maybe a half a dozen to 10 adult actors who either made their living in a combination of theater and radio, and whatever film there was. So there were a handful of professional actors in Montreal, and I was a young child compared to them. And then those professional actors sometimes would perform in amateur drama.
So it wasn't as if your friends were aware that you were this figure?
No. I did that, acted, and played football.
Okay.
That was going on. I was doing plays on Saturday and playing football on Friday nights. You know, I mean, it was two different aspects of myself.
Moving on, in high school, you were in Clifford Odette's Golden Boy. Do you have recollection of some high school theater experiences?
There was a play put on somewhere in Montreal by a different group of people, and they needed a young kid to do something or other, and so I had a different experience with that group of people. I've forgotten who they were, but they were another group of adults who were putting on plays for various reasons and purposes.
But by this time you were pretty well ensconced mentally in terms of wanting to become a theatrical professional.
That was what I was doing. I was performing plays most of the time.
Let's talk about your college years. I understand you took a backup major at your father's behest.
I took a business major in college at my father's request, yes. And but I don't know what I would have done had he not requested it, because it didn't occur to me that I could be an actor. That just didn't occur to me. I was in Montreal, and I was going to do something else, probably be in my father's clothing business. But I continued this routine of not going to school, reading other people's notes and passing the exams by 1 or 2 marks, getting 50%, 51% right on the answers, and spending 18 hours at university working on television, radio, and theater productions.